and the team asked me to do this class, I was all over it. Because honestly, being great with sellers has given me everything that I have in my business and in my life right now. And so, can you tell I'm kind of connected to that and think it's a great idea and it's a great thing for us to all do?
Yeah.
All right. So, you don't all know me, so I'm just going to give you the quick synopsis. My name is Ron Wexler. I'm a KW agent from Chicago. I'm also an OP, a MAPS coach. I've been in the business longer than quite a few of you have probably been alive. 36 wonderful years. I have a team in Chicago that sells a lot of real estate. I've had the opportunity to be an investor in several offices. And probably the most important thing up there, I told them to just put this on there, and they were reluctant. I said, I probably made more mistakes than everybody in this room added together. Okay? And the reason I think that's important is I truly believe what holds us back and what hurts us the most in our business is we're so worried about looking good and not looking bad that we don't move forward when we screw things up. And I'm kind of the king of that. You know, they talk about like our office, our main office is in Orland Park, which is a suburb of Chicago. And I mean, there was never an office in the area. We started from scratch. I ran it into the ground. I had no idea what I was doing for the first 5 years. And just like as an agent, if you think about that first few years as an agent, especially if you didn't have a Keller Williams type of world to grow up in, it was all failures. It was all, mess it up, figure out how to do it wrong, figure out how to do it right. And with our office, I always said, we just ran out of things to do wrong. Like, I just managed to do everything wrong. It's like, all that was left was to do a few things right. And so, hopefully, with classes like this, you guys are faster learners than I was. I don't think anyone else should have to take as long to figure it out or to get it right. And part of that is we're independent contractors. Does everybody remember Gary saying something about that from the stage? That how much it hurts us, our independent contractor thinking. So someone teaches us this incredible way to do what we need to do, and then we say, well, I can do it better, or I can figure out a different way to do it. And that's our natural thing. That's definitely my normal thing. I was brought up kind of in an anarchist way of thinking. So I question everything, and sometimes you just have to surrender. And it's a hard word for a lot of us. Sometimes you have to go, okay, these guys have it nailed. Diana is this incredible coach. I've known her for 20-some years. And as soon as I started really listening to her and Tony DeCello, and then was introduced to Gary, as soon as I said, okay, these guys are making way more money than I am, and they're way smarter than I am. Maybe if I want to play this game with them, I should stop thinking that I should be calling the plays. And maybe I'll just let them call the plays for a while and see how well I can execute. Does that make sense? So that's the game that we want to play, right? So we're talking about creating urgency in sellers. And, sellers buy everything. And, on my team, we have a couple buyer's agents, and they keep saying, why is sellers so important? And I say, even the buyer transactions you're getting are being driven by the sellers. Because most of the clients that you're finding are not from you advertising looking for buyers. They're you advertising the listings that you have and people contacting you from those listings. It is really hard to build a giant buyer-based business without a lot of listings, okay? And so has anybody, by any chance, ever seen this chart before? Right? So, John Davis brought this to us, and basically it's from MREA. It was his way of kind of putting it together so it was easy for us to understand. Right? We call it the CGI. And, for me, what I keep thinking is the CGI leads to GCI. Right? And is anybody that doesn't want more GCI? Right? That's the goal, ultimately. The bigger we can build, for my business, we had over 50 million in sales last year. And before I really understood the CGI, and before I understood leverage and finding great people to be on my team, my best year ever was around 25 million. And I'm not saying that isn't good, but 3 years ago I was still at 25 million. I learned to leverage, I learned to do this, and all of a sudden we're at 52, and they're telling me that that's terrible. And people on my team are like, 52, we're gonna do way more than that. And which I of course love that, right? So just the game we're playing is we're gonna all really master the CGI so that we can grow our businesses. So let's talk about, and you want to be there when they're ready to actually do it. That's the pleasure pain principle. So here's the thing. Great agents find three kinds of people, right? They find highly motivated, ready to act right now. They're already feeling their pain, or they're already hoping for their pleasure, right? Great agents find those people immediately that are ready to roll. They do it because they're constantly finding more people to work with. And, quick example would be an expired for sale by owner, most estate situations. Some estate situations, I just had one of my cousins in Chicago, they let their house sit empty, their parents' house sit empty after his dad died for almost 5 years. And literally the pain of getting rid of everything in that house, because it was full wall to wall, the pain of that didn't override the pleasure of not dealing with the house. They just hired people to kind of cursory take care of the house. They paid the taxes. They just dealt with it for 5 years. And finally, when the Chicago market had crashed enough, he was like, all right, it's time. We need to get rid of this property. It probably went down 20 or 30% from when they could have sold it to when they did. The pain finally got painful enough when he realized it wasn't going to suddenly come back and that the number was going down further and further. So if you had bumped into them right at the beginning of that circumstance, you'd have thought, I don't know what's wrong with these people, but they're not motivated. And then if you were there in the conversation with them at the moment that they, it was true, brother and sister, at the moment that they said to each other, this is insane, we're, now the taxes have gone up and things, all of a sudden they finally are like, okay, now it's painful enough. Let's go. So great agents find people ready to act right now. Then I call them the possibly motivated and ready to act, right? And so, that's the people who are, I'd sell my house right now if, right? Have you all heard that? And it's, if I can get enough money for it, if I found something I like, just things along those lines. So I call them the possibly motivated. And then when you're lead generating every day, you find people who are not motivated. Anybody ever find someone who's not motivated? So we're going to talk a little bit about how to bring them to motivation, and then also how to be okay with the fact that they're not motivated until they're ready, right? And I loved yesterday when Gary was talking about the database, because, when you think about it, your database is your future motivated people, right? They're somewhere along the line, they're coming. And either they're personally coming or someone they're going to recommend is coming. That's your future of income and things like that. So here's what we're going to focus on today. First is going to be your mindset. Next is we're going to do, I call it motivation mining. I feel like I should have copyrighted that because as I was preparing this, I just came up with that. But I'll give you an idea of what I mean by motivation mining. And then we're going to talk about the language of sales, because finding people is half the battle. Knowing what to say when you speak to them is the other half. And, if I run into somebody and you run into somebody and I know how to have a great conversation with them, I'm going to get to their motivation faster. And so knowing how to speak to people is vital. And then I just have this thing I call being there. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. So let's start with your mindset. So, there's two things, right? There's your limiting beliefs. And Gary talks a lot about that. How many of you have been through Quantum Leap, the Quantum Leap class? As soon as you can get into a Quantum Leap class, do it. It's a class that made me fall in love with KW. I got kind of lucky when they were launching Chicago. Gary came and taught Quantum Leap in Chicago. And I'm kind of thinking that might have been one of the last times he ever left Austin to teach anything, right? So I really feel like I got lucky. And it was a couple years before I even joined KW. And I fell in love with that class. It made me really look at myself and think about, where I was and where I wanted to go. And also sitting in that room, I was like, this is the most brilliant guy in real estate. And I'd worked with some of the top people, big names that you all recognize. I never was in a room with a businessman like you before, and it just blew me away. That Quantum Leap class is incredible. If you're not signed up for it, or if it's not in your region, start asking for it, find it. If you go to Austin to take it, whatever you have to do, it'll make a big difference. So limiting beliefs, right? If you're thinking, we're looking for motivated people, we're trying to create urgency, and in your mind, if you're thinking it's not really the best time to sell, does anybody ever think that sometimes? Maybe this isn't the best time for someone to sell their house? Okay, that's great for people who aren't in real estate. If you're in real estate, it's always the best time to sell your house. I don't know how else to say it, but be really clear on that, right? The thing John Davis really helped me a lot is in my operating partner role is talking about eliminating seasonality. Do you think we have some seasonality in Chicago? Right, just a bit, right? I mean, the funnest thing is getting on a plane and seeing, on the news the next day, we got a foot of snow yesterday, and I'm hanging out on the beach in Hermosa Beach, it's great. So, just know that I've always believed in seasonality because I kind of have a lot of evidence to prove it exists. In real estate, what John...
It is if you do it.
Does it once in a while, just occasionally. Been rare.
My TV does that.
John Davis is teaching us is that we create seasonality because
Very little of that. Next 48 hours, it's going to be out for here. It's going to take about 3 times. It's been pretty good. All right, everybody. Now I can ready to start. Let's just sit here and let the kids on.
Is it frozen?
Yeah. Well, maybe.
Or is it paused?
No, we just stop on some.
Nice.
But, that's what we're recording. Let's see if there's anything I can do about it. So,
Because at any moment, I should be able to take you to any home and you should go tell me how you're going to get it sold. You are a professional. You're great at what you do. Don't be afraid to say, I can do this, and I will get it done. We create the doubt, right? And we do it when we lack the skills.
maybe a realtor set up today on Monday, and now they're locked in.
Maybe.
Whereas they didn't pay attention on the weekend. Let's see, we run them simultaneously on mine so I can see if it's unique to that list. All right.
Kristen? Yes. Well, Ms. Corlin, let me ask you a question. Frank's been trying to recruit a girl that was at Mullinex for a month here. And she went in under somebody there that hadn't been there very long either. If he recruited her, she would still have him, right? The one in Mullinex.
How long is it?
I think it's about 30, there is a short period of time. They were only under them for a week or something, 2 days, 10 days, maybe a month. I took a phone call to, I don't know who,
International, National, National.
yeah, the help desk, or the help number on my KW probably,
Okay.
is where I'd probably go to find it out.
So thank you. Quit trying to recruit.
What happens if, like, say the person in Norman that they went under, what happens if that person leaves KW altogether and then the person under it came here?
If they continue to pay their $25 annual to renew and whatever.
But if they haven't vested, haven't been there 3 years, could vest.
Oh, if they haven't been invested
If they have been.
in 3 years, yeah, this goes away.
So if they, yeah.
And then I don't know where that person shifts, maybe to the next person in the tree.
It does.
Let's see. Now that we've got somebody in the room, this thing's gonna do that pretty guessing. Let me see if I can find.
So next year's reunion is in New Orleans.
What I heard, I don't don't know, they normally don't announce it by now, but
Yeah.
this
I
soon.
see it on Facebook, but I don't know.
Yeah, that's what somebody did say.
Maybe they're just randomly good at that. Like if we
Just
started-
had it 2 years ago, there.
Yeah, I know. Because last year's was where, Vegas?
Yeah.
And they're in Anaheim, is that right?
They're in Anaheim.
I used to live in
And there
If y'all have not seen the vision speech, you have got to see it, don't you? I mean,
It was so good.
amazing, and it's life-changing for our real estate industry. And you know, he's been talking about how, I know we probably videoed this, anyway, talking about, Zillow's taking over, Truly, all those people are taking it, and how we're already, so far, they've already taken over everything. And how, like, the one company, Google, they're collecting all of the, not abstracts, but appraisals. They're going to, so they're gonna end up owning all these appraisals and stuff, because they own, in case one thing, dot loop. We're Keller Williams dot loop, get to keep our own dot loop. But if you leave here, or you're dot loop on another company, that dot loop is owned by Fidelity, who's owned by, some other stuff. So they're owning every bit of that information, that appraisals, the inspections, the TRRs, all that stuff. And if yours is in it, you get it, and they put it in there. They own that too. We don't, but if you part with somebody else, that's amazing to me.
It was very eye-opening, I mean, to listen to. It was.
Is it going to be on again?
Well, we taped it, and it'll be on again, so when John Davis, who has that one, when is that? Because we've got to hear that too.
Yeah, it's
The
coming
state
up.
of our,
This is running on mine.
I think that one's at 1:30.
is it today?
Is it State of Our Company?
Yes,
I think that's 1:30 today,
that's gonna be good.
or 1 o'clock.
Gonna make sure, because,
They're selling for less, they're buying a house for
I'll
less.
tell you later. 'Cause-
If they live in that bigger house, and both those houses went up 10% when the market went up, didn't they win? So if they sold their house for $50,000 less, they bought a house for $50,000 less, and let's say it's a $300,000 house that they moved into, and their house was $200,000. Now they both go up 10%. They had a $30,000 gain versus a $20,000 gain. So wasn't it better that they did it when they did it? And if you bought at the absolute height of the market, you're probably now in most areas, some areas you already blew past it, but in most areas you're back to or very close to where it was at the top of the market. If you bought and sold anywhere during that time, you're in good shape, right? And that's something that's something I learned from Gary, that it's always the best time. It's always the best time to find a great investment too, right? How many of you own investment properties right now? Right? How many of you are committed to buying something this year? Great, right? So work on your mindset around that. The perfect house is going to put itself in front of you. Figure out what it is. What's the greatest investment you could buy right now, right? And maybe that's the house that comes to you as you're working on learning how to create urgency in sellers. Maybe that's one of the houses that's going to come to you this year. But don't just wing it. Write it down. What is the perfect house? What does it look like? Where is it located? What am I paying for it? What kind of income am I going to have? What kind of money do I need to buy it? Don't just say, I'm going to buy an investment property. Figure out the perfect property for you. I always feel that I can get them what they want, right? So I really believe that my family, friends, team, coworkers, clients, people I coach are always going to have a better life because we're in our lives together, right? Like my goal is I want to contribute to the people around me. And it's very selfish because I know when I contribute to the people around me, what happens for me, right? So I'm not pretending I'm Mother Teresa or anything. I totally get that the more we bring other people to where they want to go, the easier it's going to be for us to get where we want to go. And so I like to just play that game. So top agents have that belief. So why don't we talk a little about creating the top agent mindset? Does that sound like a good subject for you guys? Right? So how do we create that mindset? First, affirmations. We always make fun of affirmations, and think, like, especially when you first start, it's awkward and it's strange. I've got different affirmations for different things. And, I like to come up with my own and then share them. And it's fun to walk by an office and hear a bunch of people doing one that, like, one of my favorite ones I created was, I'm happy, healthy, wealthy, and thin. I help lots of people, and that's how I win. Right? And I'll just, in our office, I'll hear other teams doing it, and it's just, I was thinking, what are the things I'm really focused on right now, right? I'm focused on being happy. When did I do that? When the market was the most miserable it could be. The south side of Chicago, when everything crashed, I don't know where you guys are, but believe me, it was the absolute epicenter of misery. Other areas went down 20% or 15, 30%. We went down 55% in some of our communities. Imagine buying a house for $300,000 and it's suddenly worth $150 or $170. Okay, that was the height of what we were in. I couldn't let that get here, right? If I didn't have the right mindset, I was in big trouble. So that's where that affirmation came from. I just kept thinking, what I want to be happy, I want to be healthy, I want to be wealthy, I want to be thin. I still want to be thin. I'm really working on that a lot. And so I just worked on that really heavily and just build that in. As a salesperson, Diana teaches us, I'm a great salesperson, right? I couldn't even tell you how many times I've said that to myself. I'm a great dad. I'm a great husband. I'm a great uncle, right? All the things that are important, I just keep saying it over and over and over. I work a lot on gratitude, right? I sometimes, like when I'm feeling really just like the world's beating me to pieces today, I just go, wait a minute, what are all the things I'm happy for? And I'll just start listing them one after the next. Like, okay, so this is one moment in time. And I think about something that really might have brought me down at one time. And you go back now and you look at it and go, what was the big deal? Why was that so powerful at that moment? And so then when something is happening now, I'll just go, wait, I remember that there was something just like this, 5 years ago, and I went right through it, and life is great again. So I'm not going to let those things bring me down. So again, this is top agents, how they think, right? They look for evidence when it comes to creating urgency. When you think nothing's selling and there's nothing happening in the market, go to your MLS and put in just listeds for that week, or just solds for that week. Do you think it's ever going to say 0? Never. It's never, ever going to say 0. There's never a day or a couple day period that somebody doesn't list something. Who's going to be the agent listing it? It's not somebody who believes that nobody's buying or selling, because believe me, the universe looks at that and goes, okay, well, you believe nothing's going to happen, then you're getting nothing. This guy over here is ready for something great. He's going to get the listing, right? So it's having a little bit of faith. And then I really believe controlling your environment is important. And so, that's the environment in your head, and it's the environment around you. And, they'll make fun of me in the office because literally I'll be walking in and I'll just pick up other people's crap out of the parking lot and throw it in the garbage on my way in. I don't care. Between the car and the office, I want to just see the nice green grass and a clean parking lot. In the office, I'm the same way. Someone drops something on the floor, I don't care. I'm not about picking it up. Just pick it up and throw it away. It's my environment. The fact that they don't have that environment, that's up to them. My office the same way. We just moved into a new office. For the last 13 years, I've been in a cubicle, right? And I finally have my own little space again, and it's really nice. And I ordered like 25 beach balls and a beach scene, and I just put it up on the wall in the office. And I try and avoid looking out the window because there's this much snow on the ground, and I just look at my beach scene. I'm at the beach. This is awesome. And then I put the beach balls all over the office. Wherever I'm going, I'm at the beach. And so what does your environment look like? What's on the wall in your office? What's on your desk? What's around you? If you come in there, it's pictures of my family. It's really fun things that I've done, people I've hung out with. I mean, that's my environment. Okay? So our subject is creating urgency in sellers. Can you see where if you don't have the right mindset, you can't even start to embark on that? That's why I'm spending a little bit of time on this, right? So, it's funny, I even do it on the street that I live on. I mean, I live on, it's kind of an L-shaped street, so it's not a through street or anything like that. And if I see a bag of garbage on the ground or a can, somebody threw something out the window of the car, I'll just pick it up. And I'm sure my neighbors look out the window and they're like, he's got to be a total weirdo. Like, I can't believe he's picking up people's garbage. But I'm like, my street's usually super clean. It's not like there's a lot of stuff there normally. I just pick it up. I mean, I don't care. I want to be in a great motivation, a great mindset and environment. Are you guys all with me so far? You get that? I mean, think about your office right now. What does it look like? What is that environment? Is it what you want it to be? All right, so we worked on that a little bit. Now let's talk about this motivation mining thing, right? So now we're actually talking about dealing with people. And look at this list. Tell me what on this list is an absolute right now need to sell urgent, has to happen thing. All of it, right? And you know what's fun? It's all of it. It's also none of it. Right? Because how many know people that are divorced, they've been living in the same house together for a bunch of years? Right? You know, from the outside, you look at it and go, that's insane, right? If they made that decision, however, circumstances might have kept them from, you know, moving out of that house, right? You know, again, so they're getting married. Sometimes they live in their parents' basement. Sometimes, you know, they stay in one or the other person's apartment. So all of these things can be an urgent need to move, and all of these things may not be an urgent reason to move. And, you know, Diana, I love one of the things that we've talked a lot about is need versus want, right? So you're getting a divorce, you want to live in separate homes. You don't need to live in separate homes, you have your separate bedrooms, whatever it is, and somehow you're making it work where you are for right now. So they might not have an urgent need. So as salespeople, how are we bringing them to that urgent need? So, you know, I just wrote down, motivation accelerates needs into wants, right? Or wants into needs, right? When they, all of a sudden when they're motivated, something was like, I kind of want to, but I don't have to. All of a sudden they might need to. So just understand that their motivation is what's going to really make that happen one way or the other. So I know I mentioned, I'm hoping you're all writing down if you have questions that come up, so that when we get to that part of things, we can go over some great questions. All right, so understanding that people may or may not have an absolute need to sell, and when they say to you, we're getting a divorce, you think, how fast could I get away from this person if I was getting a divorce? They might be thinking, I'm not in enough pain, right? We're back to pain and pleasure. They might not be there yet, you know, especially maybe they've been married a really long time and they're both kind of fearing what's on the other side. So they kind of just take it really slow, stick together a lot longer. You asking great questions and getting to know them is what's going to help you. And that's when I talk about motivation mining, and I'm pretty sure I stole almost every, well, okay, did I just skip the slide? No? Okay. So, logic makes them think and emotions make them act. Anybody ever heard that one before? Right? So logically, if you're getting a divorce, you probably need to get a different house. Emotionally, you might not be ready for it. So do you know how to ask questions to bring people to emotions? And you know, one of the things, I have the good fortune of being in business with several amazing team leaders. And one of the team leaders, her name's Colleen, when we talk about her interviewing agents, what we talked about when she first started, and had never really done this on the scale that she does it now, as part of KW, is I told her, if you don't get them to cry, you never got to any real emotion. And she thought I was kidding at first, right? And I said, no, I'm dead serious. When you ask great questions, people get to emotion. When people get to emotion, often what do? They cry. Right? And if I'm crying with you, we're going to have a pretty good connection, aren't we? So when I am ready to do something, I'm not going to say I'm going to go to this person because they made me cry, but I am going to remember I felt really good in your presence. Because if I cry, I probably feel safe with you. Does that make sense? So there's a good connection. So let's talk about some of these questions. And you guys all know that you are going to be able to download all this, right? Okay, just to be clear. So it's great if you want to write things down. It's also great to know in a few days you'll be able to just download the whole thing and take anything you want from it. So let's talk about some of the motivation minding questions, right? Very simple. Tell me more about that. What will that do for you? And it's one, first time I heard that was Diana, and I'm just assuming she made it up. I'm not sure. But I just love that question. What will that do for you? Because people say, we're going to get a divorce. Well, what will that do for you? Right? All of a sudden, they're not just like, you in your head make up a bunch of stories, right? Because that's what we do. We just make up meaning to everything we hear. So you might have been in a family that had a very nice, amicable divorce, and you might have been in a family that had the knockdown, drag-out war divorce, and you hear divorce, and that's what you think of. And if someone says divorce, you want to know what their version of divorce is, not what your filters for life has made it turn into. And that's the goal, is to get, you want to go there and be with people where they are, like them, and give up all of your BS about how you think the world actually works. Because there's absolutely 8 billion realities on the planet right now, right? You can see it in politics, that look how the exact same people in the exact same country, literally half the people see the world one way and half see it the other way. And there's only one actual thing happening, but we all see it differently, right? And so you have to give up your viewpoint on pretty much everything when you're dealing with people and find out where they're coming from and what their viewpoint is. So that's what these questions are good for. What will that do for you? What else will that do for you? And I really love that because, I don't know why we got stuck on divorce. It's such a mean thing, but, they say I'm getting a divorce. What will that do for you? Well, it'll, get me away from him. Okay, great. What else will that do for you? It'll give me a chance too, and they're going to tell you something more. The deeper you go, the more it's a second or third answer that you're looking for. The truth is, it's not their first answer. It's a second or third one that's going to get you to what's real, and we're looking for pain and pleasure, and we're looking for what gets people to have motivation. It's not that first thing. It's that second or third, maybe fourth or fifth. When we get the job done, how will you feel? Right? That's a great question. When we get the job done, how will you feel? Feelings, right? Not what will it be like, how big will your bank account be or anything like that. How will you feel? We want to get to their feelings. Who else will benefit when you make the move? I mean, I would say most of us, almost all of us in real estate, I would say really are kind of about other people, right? We didn't get in real estate because of us. We like the idea of helping other people get what they want. And so most people are like that. Who else will benefit when you make the move? What will it be like for them? Right? Well, it's going to be much more peaceful for our children, or whatever the thing is, whatever they're on, you're going to get to that. Just a couple more. How will it make them feel? When was the last time you were together? So if you're talking about, I want to move to get closer to my children. When was the last time you were together? What am I trying to bring out? Emotion, right? I want to get to emotion. What was it like when they left? Asking, my kid lives out here and I live in Chicago. Believe me, if you ask me what was it like when he left, every time for the last 3 years, it's like, I felt like it was the day I dropped him off at college. I want to cry right now, right? Every time the kid goes home. You want to get to that. What could stop you? Right? What would stop them? What would get them out of the emotion of it and just make them stay? What if it took a year, 2 years, 3 years? Right? We're working to create urgency. And I love it, especially with grandparents. We want to move down to Florida. Chicago, we get this a lot, right? Because their kids were smart enough to get out of Chicago. And now they're having grandkids, and they wouldn't move. They stuck with where they were. Finally, the pain of not being with their grandkids is finally hitting them out. And so, what would it look like in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years? And what I used to love to do, and I always felt like it was, I don't know, maybe it's manipulative, but I just tried to get them to emotion. I would say, how old are the kids now? And they would go, 3 and 5. I go, okay, and it's a lot of times you're fighting with the seller around price, right? And so they're thinking your house is worth $300 and it's worth $250. And so here's the thing. So for the $50,000 you're hoping to get someday, are you willing to give up those years? Because we don't know when your house is going to be worth $300. So right now the kids are 2 and 4. So 10 years from now, how old will they be? Because that's probably when your house is going to get to be worth $300. And so do you mind if when you move down there, they're 12 and 14 instead of 2 and 4? They're beautiful. Teenagers are wonderful. I'm sure you remember when your kids were teenagers. You want to wait till those grandkids are teenagers to be with them? Or do you want to go be with them while they're little kids and have fun? And when you start digging deep, all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we don't care about the money. What were we thinking? Right? But for the last 10 years, they've been telling themselves, well, we're going to sell our house for $300. And now you're in front of them saying it's $250. Get to the reason behind it. This is how you create urgency, right? You get to what's really behind it. What's really important to them. I wrote down, what if things changed in the market and you had to wait 6 to 10 years? I mean, that happened to a lot of people in Chicago, right? What we're experiencing right now is finally people are saying, all right, my house is never going to get back to where it was, and I wanted to be somewhere. We just sold a house guy I've known since high school. He's wanted to move for like 12 years, you know, and it was right when everything crashed is when he should have moved, and he was like, I'm waiting till I get my money. And, you know, finally it's like, okay, dude, you're like 10, he's been retired that long. He's like, you're 10 years older. When are you going to go to Arizona? You know, all he wants to do is live in Arizona and ride his motorcycle. I'm like, when are you going to do it? What are you waiting for? You know, what's it going to be like riding your motorcycle when you're 70 instead of when you're in your 50s? It's like, let's go. You know, forget the money. The money's irrelevant. You would have had the last 10 years, you would have been down in Arizona having fun. Was it really worth it? And he finally, you know, just let go and made the move, right? We finally got to the urgency. So, the next thing I was thinking, oh, see, there it is you don't always have to be good. Sometimes you just have to be there, right? And a great example of that for most of us is, have you ever had a great relationship with, say, a for sale by owner that you've been nurturing along, and you know you're the best agent for them, and you know everything about them, and you know you're connected, and they're like, oh, you're the guy for me, you're the gal for me, you're the one, I'm hiring you when it comes. And somebody who got their license like yesterday knocks on their door and they list with them. Am I the only one that's had that happen? Right? So where does that come from? That agent was there the night before, you know, she turned to him or he turned to her and said, this is stupid, I want to get out of here, we need to hire an agent, this isn't working. Right? Or they had the 50th buyer who left their house and said, we'll be back, we're writing a contract, and never returned another one of their phone calls. Whatever it is, their motivation changed like that, and whoever was there at that moment won. Sometimes it's going to be you, sometimes it's not. So you don't always have to be the greatest person, you do have to be there at the moment they're ready to go. And we talked about how great agents, you know, are always nurturing people and building their database, right? So that's a big part of it. So let's just talk a little bit about how to be there, right? Because great agents know how to be there. So Gary, I loved, first of all, did you guys think Gary was amazing yesterday? Right? I mean, this is like my 13th year of sitting through that, and I was like, I feel like it was day one. I mean, it was just so powerful, right? And he talked about what a lot of us want to ignore, which is how important that database is, right? And now with all the tools we have and all the tools that are coming, it shouldn't be hard to follow up with a database, right? I mean, when I started, it was, 3x5 cards, right, in a file box. Now you throw it on a computer and you can be the laziest agent in the world and you can have systems following up with those people. You shouldn't be the laziest agent in the world, but you can almost get away with it. So, are you building a database? Are you following up with it so that you can be there? That's what great agents do. They're there when those people make that decision. If you're in people's face constantly from right now until 3 years from now when they're finally going to do something, you're going to be the one they remember. For sale by owners, I did great with for sale by owners because between contact number 4 and contact number 7, which was maybe the 3rd week, is when they finally did something, right? And so the other agents had all given up. They went there once and the people weren't real polite or whatever, and they just gave up. I just never gave up. I mean, until they listed with someone else or told me, go away, leave us alone, I just stayed on them. And it was the same with the expired. So be there when they're ready. If you don't lead generate daily, then that group you're following up on is very small. And now you're trying to get a lot out of a very little group. I would rather try and get a lot out of a very large group. So, I'm sure you guys were hoping I wouldn't mention it, but you need to lead generate every day. This should be an epiphany for you because I'm sure you've never heard it before. If you're talking to some people every day, that's a lot better than trying to talk to a giant group in one day. It's just a few people every day. I lead generated 2 to 4 hours a day from 1993 until 18 months ago when my team fired me, basically. I walked in one day and they're like, no, you're not calling the expires and FISBOs, you're not doing any of that, you have other things to do. And they wouldn't let me do it. And I literally sat there for an hour going, well, I didn't, it's like if you told me I couldn't brush my teeth or get dressed, right? I was like, I don't know what to do now. I mean, it's 20 years of doing it. And so if you're doing it a little bit every day, you build an incredible business, an incredible database to follow up on. If you're trying to do one mass mailing or one great event that's going to bring 1 billion people, it's not going to work as well, and you're going to burn out. Just make it a daily habit. Great agents are there, and they take conversations deep. 3 to 5 questions below the surface, right? Diana talks a lot about, water skiing versus scuba diving, right? And when you're on the surface with people, you're just like everyone else, because every other agent that called a for sale by owner or talked to somebody, they said, oh, we're getting divorced. Oh, that's terrible. Let me know when I can help. You take them to emotion, and when they're ready to act, they're like, who was that agent? I remember that one person really cared about me, really spent time with me, really got me thinking about what it's going to be like for me when I do this. So be that person who takes a lot of people deep. I have a thing I call the 8 billion people theory. And it kind of goes like this. Especially when I was doing a lot of cold calling, right? 1 year, we talk about doing 100 contacts a day in bold. I did 100 contacts a day for 9 months, right? It's like 500 or more every single week for 9 months. Most of it was cold calling. So it's just, how long have you lived at this address? Where'd you move from? If you were to move, where'd you go next, right? It's just, there's 5 questions, bang, bang, bang. And I had this theory that if I'm dialing the phone and someone answers the phone, and there's 8 billion people on the planet, there's some reason this person answered the phone. Just what are the odds that they were home at that moment? Because I only did the lead gen, it was almost always just before noon. I did not lead gen at night. I didn't come in on Saturdays. I didn't do any of that. But I did it every day a little. So I never had to do the rush on Saturday and make up for the last few contacts. I always did what I was supposed to do. So I got this theory that either I'm supposed to contribute something to their life, or they're supposed to contribute something to my life. And if I stay on the phone with them just a little longer than I want to, because really I want, when they say, we're not doing anything, what do you really want to do? Click, right? And sometimes I would actually just say it. Literally my script was, I have this weird thing called the 8 billion people theory. My theory is that if all the people on the planet Earth, I dialed your number and you answered, and there's probably some way we're supposed to connect. So are you in a business that has anything to do with real estate where I might be able to send you business? And you think people don't pause when they hear that because, they're waiting for you to try and sell them something? And, I had great ones. I had people say, we're in the, one of my favorite ones is we're in the painter drop cloth business, right? And like, what is that, right? So in big giant buildings, the professional painters, they have a company that comes and brings all the drop cloths, picks them up, cleans them, and brings them back. And so they're telling me there's business. And I'm like, I have a client that is one of the biggest painters in downtown Chicago. Do you mind if I connect you guys? Maybe something will come of it. And those people ended up talking, and to this day, I don't even know if they ended up working together, but do you think those people remember that I helped them make that connection? Right? So there's some reason, I don't know what it is. One of my assistants that was with me for 15 years was someone I called doing cold calls. And we were together 15 years. I wasn't selling her, in fact, I did just sell her house, she just retired. It was 15 years later, right, from that one cold call. But we were together 15 years. So just play with the 8 billion people theory. If you don't like that script, make up your own script. But just understand, when you're standing in line at the grocery store, how many grocery stores are there in this country? How many people are standing in line in a grocery store? Why is that person in front of you, or the one that's behind you, or the checker? Why are you in that line? It isn't just to buy some onions and apples or whatever. There's a reason you're there. So play with it. Don't be afraid to ask people. Use language that causes action, right? And then be there when they're ready. And, I'm really big on language. I'm really big on knowing the words that cause people to move. Because honestly, the year that I did the 12,000 contacts where I was doing 100 a day was exhausting. And it's like, if I got better in fact, here, I'll give you a quick thing. So the year I did 12,000 contacts, we closed 121 houses. The next year, I made 4,500 contacts and closed 132. Do you think I got better at my scripts? I did the exact same kind of work, and now, if I was smarter, right, what Gary Keller would have done is he would have still made 12,000 contacts the next year, and he would have made 3 times as much money, right? I was like, the money is fine at this number of transactions, so I'm not going to work harder. I'm just going to be home for dinner every night, and things like that. So I just chose other things. Now looking at it, I would have been like, what if I taught some other people to make 12,000 contacts with me, and we would have closed 500 transactions instead of 130, right? So using language that causes people to act is how you're going to get there. I wrote down, don't believe, and I say without deeper investigation, what you hear from others, right? Don't necessarily buy into the first thing they say, right? We're trying to find some urgency or create some urgency. don't just necessarily buy the first thing you hear. Take them deeper. Go a little bit past that initial thing that you hear. Be the expert in your market, right? And Gary talks about this a lot in Shift. Who knows the most about the market that you're in? And if it's not you, why not? Especially if you're in a geographic area, you should, the town that I live in, I've been the top agent in it for probably 30 years. And it's always been a third or a half of my income. I mean, now it's not anymore, but for a long time it was. And people would call and say, I have a house to sell, and they give me the address, and I'd be able to say, wait, was that the Johnsons' house? Did you buy it from the Johnsons? It was like in the early 80s, right? Like, I know the town, I know every house. I either played in the house, picked up my kids at that house, or sold that house, just about every house in the whole town, right? There's like 7,000 houses maybe. I mean, I know that town really, really, really well. And part of that is I had time, right? Like, everything gets better over time. Part of that is I just was so focused. I mean, I got to the point where I could drive down the street and be like, nothing's sold on the street in the last 3 years. It's been a really long time since I've seen a sold sign here. And I'd start mailing to that street, and we'd end up getting a listing. And my assistants were always like, okay, that was weird. Like, why did you pick just that? Because we didn't even do a lot of mailings. Like, why did you do that? And I said, just kind of that hunch, right? Like, I don't really believe in hunches. I kind of believe that if you have a thought, if you stop, instead of just ignoring it, something pops in your head, that's the universe screaming at you through 8 billion souls, and what you hear is just some little thing. Maybe I should turn left here, right? Maybe I should do a mailing to this block. Maybe those people I should call. Who's ever had, maybe I should call, and a name popped in your head and you didn't do it, and within a few weeks there was a for sale sign in your yard, right? Probably every person in this room. Start trusting that little voice. Believe me, it'll get you really far. So be the expert in your area, and then learn the language of sales, right? All right, it's great. I just have everything out of order here now. So learn the language of sales. We have a class called the Language of Sales, right? Right in Keller Williams. If you go to mapslos.com, they'll take you to the page and tell you about it. It's a weekly class. It's what they call a fast track program in the KW world. So it's 12 weeks, an hour a week on Wednesdays, and you're going to learn how to ask great questions and use language patterns that cause people to reveal themselves at a higher level, right? That's learning how to create urgency. Take some of the courses on expireds, for sale by owners. Read great books. Read Instant Rapport. If any of you have heard of a book called Instant Rapport, and it's an older book, you probably get it for $1 on Amazon at the point. Get the book Instant Rapport. You'll get a lot out of that. Learn language patterns, learn to speak in a way that causes people to act. Get over your fear and be there for others, right? Most of everything that's holding us back, we created, right? Because we had some fear of what's on the other side. And yet everything that you want in your life is outside of your comfort zone, and it's in some space that you fear right now, that once you go there, you'd be like, what was I afraid of? Creating urgency with sellers is you getting out of your fear of asking people questions, taking them deeper. I don't necessarily want to deal with strangers' emotions. I have enough of my own. I have family. And yet, the more I can bring other people to their emotions, the greater gift I'm giving them, because I'm going to help them get what they want. Don't be afraid of that whole thing. If you're having problems with it, get a MAPS coach. I mean, I'm sure you haven't heard that at all this whole week. Right? Get a MAPS coach. Get someone on your side to help you get where you want to go. Take language of sales. Take some of the other great, KW coaching programs. Read 2 or 3 books every month. If you haven't read the book Rocket Fuel yet, you need to read it immediately. If you haven't read The One Thing, about 20 times, I've been in and out of airports a lot since January 1st, because one thing when you live in Chicago, and you can afford to in the winter, you just go, right? So, I was in Baltimore last week, I was in Arizona playing baseball the week before, I'm here this week, we've got something else planned in about 3 weeks, we're going somewhere. I'm like, I just can't get out of Chicago fast enough in the winter. And every airport in the bookstore, guess what book is in that airport? The One Thing, right? And so here it's our book, right? Like our partner created it for us. And a lot of us haven't even read it yet. It's kind of crazy. And other corporations are paying him to teach that book. And some people in KW haven't read it or haven't read it. It's the second or third time you read it that you're going to get the most out of it, to be honest. So read it that first time as fast as you can and just start reading it again. Set goals that find your dreams. Because we talk about pleasure and pain. When I know the pleasure of what it's like, when I'm going to get the car that I want, the boat that I want, the vacations I want, I just gave away a BMW. It was my partner's kid's 16th birthday, and I just gave him my car. And I was like, now I get to get a new car. This is really cool, right? And so at first I was a little reluctant. It was his 16th birthday. I thought, pretty cool to get a red convertible on your 16th birthday, not even from your parents, right? How fun is that? And so for me, the pleasure from what I get to do when the money is coming is way better than the pain that I had to go through to learn to get to that point. I had to learn to be a leader, right? I was really good at selling. I wasn't great at leading. I had to learn to be a great leader. And again, I told you it was a very long learning curve, right? But I got past the pain, so now I can have the pleasure. Creating urgency with people is going to be the same thing. You're going to have to get to where you're not afraid to ask questions. When you're standing in line at the grocery store, have a conversation. When you have a seller that's overpriced, have a conversation. Get back to their motivation. Get to people's motivation and then be there when they're ready to do something. Learn to ask great questions, because I really think that's one of the most important parts. Are you asking great questions of people? All right, so I think I covered everything I wanted to cover. So let's do this. I have a microphone here. We're going to play a game called Get Out of Your Comfort Zone and come up and ask a question. And what I'd like to do, because I have to stand here for everybody at home, can someone just come up, grab this mic, whoever's going to be first. Look at that brave soul. And then just make a line right here, and you can just hand the mic to the person behind you. Just stand.
I'll hand it to Tyler when I'm done.
All right, great. All right, so tell us who you are, where you're from, because you have the nerve to come up here. We might as well know who to send referrals to.
I'm Amy Heflin. I'm from the Pioneer Valley Market Center in Western Massachusetts on the other side of the state, from
Okay.
Boston. And I just want to say that everyone in this room, I've learned, and I think I'm a positive person, but watching you present, it's your gestures, your body language, your face. You've been smiling the entire presentation. It's really important, and I've been really noticing it and moved by it. And if I met you on this and we started talking and I had a house to sell, I wouldn't talk to any other realtor. I seriously would go right to you because of the energy, and you just seem into it and enthusiastic, and that seems like a no-brainer thing, but I think that really matters in the grind of what can be working these businesses that we all work. So.
I thank you for that. I love that. And you know what's funny when you say that? When I first started real estate, I was 23, right? I was completely clueless. Like, I could tell you every car that was built from 1959 to that moment, and I couldn't tell you anything about houses, right? Because it's what I was into. And I was walking down the street with my mom. She's like, honey, that one's a Cape Cod, and what that means is, and that's how little I knew about real estate. And I won a lot of the listings I went on, and it was absolutely energy and enthusiasm. Because if it was, literally, it was malpractice. I had no idea what I was doing. But they would work with me for that. So that's a really good point, and don't overlook that sometimes that's how you win, right? You're there, and they feel really good about you as a human being. So I appreciate that.
Hey Ron, my name is Don Kalinda, and I used to live in Kansas City, but now I live in Hawaii.
Oh, you poor guy. You trying to make friends here?
Yeah, I'm trying to make friends here. The reason why I wanted to come up is you mentioned that you have a picture of a beach, and you have beach balls in your office to kind of stimulate you and keep you pushing toward the goal you want. So my question to you is, if it's very important for you to have that environment, why not buy a place over in Hawaii and let me help you?
That's a great idea. So what did he just demonstrate? Right? So you asked me that question. So now take it 2 questions deeper.
Okay, what would be important to you to own a place in Hawaii?
When I wake up on the beach and on the sand and in water, I'm a better me.
I agree. You would be a better you. And why stay in Chicago during the cold months when you could actually be lead generating on a beach in Hawaii?
Wow. Great. You get it? right? So Don, and I've known you for a while, Don's
Yeah.
probably gonna be emailing me when I get home, so send me some listings, you never know, right? But so that's it, right? Take it deeper with people. That's a great example of that. And I don't have an answer for you, except I wanted to live here for like 40 years. I love Southern California, and I love it so much that I ingrained that thought in my last kid to the extent that the minute he got out of college, he moved to LA. Right? And he said to me halfway through college, he goes, hey, you know, you've talked about living in California. I mean, I did to the point where spring break was renting houses on the Balboa Peninsula, right? And his summer camp was at Pepperdine in Malibu, right? I mean, that's how deeply ingrained, because I wanted to end up here. And now I'm like, well, my mom's like in her 80s, and I really like being around my brothers and sisters. We all kind of live close. And like now I have all these other reasons I never thought of when I said I'm going to live in California, you know, at some point. The answer to your question is the way I'm doing it is I'm visiting the sunshine and the beach a lot. And probably when you call me, we should figure something out. I love that idea.
Well, you know, you mentioned Diana, and I've taken bold a few times, and the answer I had to what you just said was, you can have reasons or you can have results, but you can't have both.
And thank you. There you go. Good job.
Hi, my name is Margaret Beachy. I am an agent in the Philadelphia area. Lived in Chicago for 8 years.
Okay.
One of my favorite places to live, aside from the winter. So my question to you is, you had listed that you said you had about 5 questions you asked when you were cold calling your 12,000 that year. Or, yeah,
Right.
12,000. My question is, what were you basing your calls around? Were they around listings or just introducing yourself?
We called it call-arounds, you know, and it was just listed call. So I'll just call you. All right, ring, ring.
Hello?
Hi, is this Margaret?
Yes, it is.
Hey Margaret, it's Ron Wexler with Keller Williams. We just listed a house down the street from you. It has 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and it's listed for $149,900. And I was wondering who you know that would like to live in the area.
I hadn't thought about that. I didn't see the sign.
Oh, okay, yeah, you know, check it out. You know, let me ask, how about you? How long have you lived at this address?
About 10 years.
10 years, great. Where'd you move from?
We moved back to the area from Chicago.
Back from Chicago, excellent. What made you choose this neighborhood?
It was halfway between work and our family.
Oh, okay, great. So it's a great location for your family.
Correct.
Okay, great. And so Margaret, let me ask, if you ever were to move again, where would you go next?
Someplace warm.
Someplace warm. I don't blame you. So Margaret, when would that be?
I'd say it's close to 10 years.
10 years, okay. And what would that do for you living somewhere warm?
Well, I'm just so tired of snow. I have to shovel one more time between Chicago and Philly.
All right, I don't blame you. So let me ask you this. Is it okay with you if I just take your information and just check in with you every so often, and maybe when you're ready to go 10 years from now, we can work together?
Yeah, that would be a great idea.
Okay, great, thank you. That was it. I just did that 12,000 times, you know? It's like, someone says yes. So, great question.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, doing
Thank
great.
you so much. That was amazing. Hi, everybody. My name is Mariana Costa. I'm from Cape Cod. And my question for you is, I'm teaching a class this afternoon on video, leveraging your business through video.
Okay.
So what I've been doing is I was like you. I was a top agent all by myself. Got to the point where I was working 100% by referral. I'm from Cape Cod, so second home market. 60% of people don't live there, so it's very quiet.
Everything's over the phone.
Everything's over the
Right.
phone. So what I did is I implemented videos so that I could buy myself time back so I could hire the right people.
Okay,
Because I hired out of desperation
okay.
in my first 2 years,
Sure.
and it all went
We all made that
wrong.
mistake. Right.
So video bought me the opportunity to hire right.
Okay.
So I heard you say something in regards to why didn't I, when my team fired me, and or when I had those deals, why didn't I just make extra calls and double or triple my business?
All right.
Have you thought about educating people through video, educating your team through video, so that those calls are not only made for you, but they're made the way that you would want them to be made?
All right. And that's a great question. It's funny you're asking that, because what we finally figured out is my role in my team right now needs to be helping them become great salespeople, right?
Yeah,
And
it's a way of creating a
So that's a
trend.
great question. So you need to send me your information and maybe
Well,
we
the
can do
breakout is
something.
this afternoon at 3:15,
There
so
you go.
if you want, just come over, all right?
love
And then
it.
you can learn.
I love it. You
Room
have,
250, you're in the same booth.
I love it.
Hi, Ron. I'm Sarika Fisher. I'm in Nashville.
Okay.
And Margaret actually asked the question, but I was thinking while I was waiting, What's the one thing that you would tell us that you found most profitable, or your best one thing that you can share?
So, we talk about one thing, and when you ask the question that way, what I'm really hearing is, I just want the magic pill. And what I'll say is, there's a million one things, and you should be doing them as Gary teaches us, one at a time on the way. So when you have a MAPS coach, they'll help you figure out where you are, where you want to be, and you'll figure out your one thing for that moment. And you'll keep doing it. So your one thing right now might be taking language of sales or a course where you learn to get better with scripts. It might be learning to build a database the right way. It might be learning how to go after expires and for sale by owners. It might be just becoming a great listing agent and a great listing presentation. It might be a great buyer presentation. So it would be malpractice for me to even guess what your one thing should be right now. What I'll tell you is, we're all, somebody asked Gary something kind of similar too, about, what's the one thing we should be doing right now? It's like, there isn't really ever only one thing. There's one thing you should be focused on taking care of right now that's going to make the biggest difference as you move forward. That's the one thing, whatever it is at that moment. Your inbox will never be empty. I'll promise you that. No matter what it is, there's always going to be a next thing that needs to be accomplished. So even things she mentioned with video, I love that idea, and I'm going to go back to Tammy, who runs my team, right? And she's the one that took our team to where it is now, and say, should we start implementing video into it, right? So does that help? Okay, good. You're welcome.
Hey everyone, my name is Leland, out of Orange County, Southern Orange County, the south portion of it.
Nice.
So I have a question. I think you kind of covered it, but I'd like to hear it if you had another way to say it, especially for this. So in a hot market with a lack of inventory, how do you handle the objection and create urgency for something like, you know what, Ron, we want to move, but we want to move to this specific track across the street. However, there's just nothing for sale.
Great. So Leland, if right now, today, if the perfect house came on the market, could you buy it without selling your home?
No, we can't.
Okay. So we have no choice. You're going to have some faith that I'm going to do a good job. And if you have to drive through the neighborhood that you want and write down the address of every single house that fits your needs, I will go knock on every one of those doors as soon as we get your house in the market and get to work. There's no advantage. They're not going to take a contingent offer on your house. We need to get your house sold. I promise you, I've never made anyone homeless. Let's get your house in the market. Let's go find you a great buyer at a great price. You'll know how much money you have to spend. And then the perfect house will present itself, and I will be on top of it so we make sure you get it.
Sure.
That's it. That's all you have to do. I know, don't complicate it. And see, it's we talk about limiting beliefs, right? My belief is everything I just said. If your belief is, I'm going to make them homeless, I'm really worried, then that's what's going to come through. And the agents who are kicking butt absolutely believe they're never going to make anyone homeless. Okay? My pleasure.
Hi, Ron. My name is Candace Ray, and I am a new agent, 5 months, at Roseville, California. Thank you. And I'm bold, by the way. I'm
Good.
taking bold. And so I believe that we should all get teaching and coaching in areas that we already have talent. So I chose to sign up for language sales.
Good. Good.
Okay.
You're love it.
So, well, if I give you permission to coach me, can I be vulnerable?
Love to hear that. You guys open for that? Okay. What happens in this room stays in this room except for the 200,000 people watching it around here.
Well, I could use the support. So we're in, week 6 or 7?
Okay.
I've taken 1 class.
Okay.
So I'm feeling very, very behind.
Great. So what's really interesting with language of sales is it's probably the most intense of all. Like, you literally chose the most intense class. And when Diana asked me if I would teach it, I was so excited because I had taken it like 20 years ago, and that was that year. I went from 12,000 to 4,500 contacts, and it made such an impact on me. I took it was a 6-month class. I took it 3 times. I took it for 18 straight months. And I said that to Diana, because I kind of hit the point where I wasn't really going to do a lot of coaching anymore, and she offered me the chance to teach that class. I was like, I'm in. I always tell everyone to take that class. And then I told her, the 18 months, she goes, that's really funny. I did it for 24. And I was talking to Joe Bogart yesterday, and he was like, I actually did it for like 4 sessions too. So everybody who's a great salesperson goes, oh my God. And it's scary and overwhelming when you first start. And so that first class, you go, oh my, it's language of sales. You're learning a new language. And so understand, how well did you speak English when you were 6 months old, when you were 12 months old, when you're 2 years old, compared to how you speak it now? Now you're probably pretty good at it, right? But at the beginning, it was really hard. And what we've noticed is a lot of people have a harder time at the beginning, just like everything we talked about, creating urgency in sellers, going deeper with people. None of that's going to come super easy to all of us. We have to decide that the pleasure we're going to get from doing it is better than the pain we're suffering now by not doing what we need to do. So what I would suggest is you have access to all those things, all the recordings. Go back to week 2 and listen to it. Go back to week 3. Just get caught up and then sign up and take it again in April. Because you're going to take it 2, 3, 4 times in a row anyways. I mean, you should. I'm not saying you have to. But just take it again. And there's nothing to, everything's okay. What did it say on the very first slide? I'm the biggest screw up in the room, right? I've done it wrong. I've done everything wrong a million times and I'm still doing everything wrong. I'm just taking the things that I finally figured out and going back and doing them right. So what would you tell yourself to answer that question?
I was thinking that same thing. I would tell myself not to regret that I
Right.
failed forward.
Yeah. There's no failure. If anybody can get anything out of this conversation, there's no real such thing as failure, all right? You did something and it didn't work. That's all. It's not failure, and it's nothing about you as a human being. You know, we make it mean something about us. Forget all that. It doesn't even matter. You did something, it didn't work, go do the next thing. And just keep going.
Well, I was just feeling like I had robbed myself of the value of what was available to me, what I paid for.
Yeah, right. Well, because you feel like you wasted that money if you don't do what you're supposed to do. And yet, if you get the revelation that you committed to something and didn't keep the commitment, and now you're going to keep the commitment and you're going to move forward, that was worth the $400 you paid to take the class. Seriously, it's going to make you hundreds of thousands of dollars. So just take the lesson and go and run with it. So, my pleasure. And if you want to talk some more afterwards, let's catch me outside or something. Thanks,
Not the last
All
one.
right. Yeah, we're almost there. Good luck.
Hey Ron, my name is Bud Doyle. I'm from Denver, Colorado.
Okay.
And I just want to say on behalf of everybody here, this was fantastic. So thank you. This is my favorite one by far. And I think the biggest aha that I have is when you said that everything that you want in your life is outside of your comfort zone. And it's just, I've kind of added door knocking to my world.
Okay.
I really built my business from open house, and I've added door knocking. And what drives me to get out of the car, it's easy to drive up to the neighborhood. It's getting out of the car.
Right, perfect.
But it's like my goals and my, providing for my family is stronger and bigger than if somebody is rude to me or whatever. It's like, who cares?
Who cares? Move on, next.
Yeah. And it's like, it's outside of your comfort zone, but inevitably, every time I get back in the car, after 2.5, 3 hours of door knocking, I feel like, hey, for today, I did the very best I could, and I got out there.
Everything that you have in your life is there because it was inside your comfort zone. Everything that you want that you don't have yet is outside of that zone. You haven't done the things to bring it into your life. That's why it's not here yet. Just be okay with that. And the beating yourself up is like the worst thing we do. Just stop beating yourself up. Who cares? I'm going to screw it up. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to move forward. And just keep going with that mindset. All right, great
So
job.
thanks again.
All right, my pleasure. All right, so we've got about a minute left, so here we go.
Hi, my name is Rain
Okay?
Logan with Palmdale, California.
All right.
I just got this call from. I'm such a high IS,
Okay?
and I find that getting leads is more outdoors. And you were talking about focus on daily calls,
Mm-hmm.
and you may do that much business, but I also do evening calls. And
Okay?
how does that? I know sellers could be home at night, but it seems like you do everything in the morning.
I did everything in the morning because I was at the dinner table eating dinner at 5 o'clock every night. That was what's cool about real estate is you can do whatever you want. That was what was important to me. I didn't work weekends, I was home at 5. Once I figured out that if I lead gen every day, I can do whatever the heck I want. You have to work at night because you're not doing what you need to do during the day. So, sorry, I don't mean to be mean.
No, that's okay.
All right? But then once you start doing it, you'll get to dictate it. All right, last question, and it's got to be fast. Please do the KW eval. They always want to know what you guys think of the classes so we can improve. So, all right.
Thank you for the great class. My name is Matej Granic. I'm from Miami, Florida.
Okay.
I do a lot of expires, and I have quite a bit of family last year who actually are divorcing. So I actually decided to not be the second, third, or fourth agent, to improve that and be the first one.
Okay.
And I get a data where I actually can see who are.
Okay, so you're getting information on
what will be the
divorces.
script? Because I
It's a tough one, because it's very close to the ambulance chasing type thing, right? And it's a tough thing. What I would tell you is, take language of sales, get a MAPS coach, work on the scripts, find out from other people who are doing it, what's working for them. And just, someone else is already succeeding at it, go do what they're doing.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you all for being here. Have a great day, go kick some butt, and go create some urgency.
In the real estate market, sellers and buyers have great expectations, and as a real estate